in progress. And though if you do not want to be recorded, you are free to excuse yourself. But if you are here, then the call has to be recorded for others to be able to have access to it. So last week we talked about we talked about Azure policy, Azure blueprint, right? And then we also touched app services and then Azure function. There's one other topic in that particular module, that is Azure DevOps, right? We'll touch that this evening, and we'll touch Azure database. And if time permits, we'll also touch Azure monitor. Okay. And then after that, I'm going to share with us this one, maybe step by like exercise, exercise. Not every project require app service to be, DevOps. Not every project require that. But for those that might require DevOps, implementation of DevOps in their project, is why we said it's still very important if we can cover it right this evening. So this week we are starting with Azure DevOps, and I'm going to be so a little bit of background really into the Azure DevOps. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning. So if I'm saying beginning, I'll go back to introduction. But majorly, what is DevOps, right? There is DevOps, then there is Azure DevOps. DevOps actually is I hope you can all hear me. Please signify so that it's not like I'm just talking to myself. Can we hear me? All right, thank you. Okay, so DevOps I would say is a fusion or a union of two distinct teams, right? And majorly what is revolving around is, when we talk about team, we are talking about people. And then what are these team doing what? They deal with products, they deal with processes, right? So before, we have every team work in silo. You have your development team. If you look at the way the development team, if they have their way, all they do is just write their codes. Okay, they have a project to produce or develop a particular product or application, then they write their code. Then once they write their code, they test it, and then once they are ready to deploy to production, they meet with the operation team. So that's the development and operation. That's what makes up the DevOps. They meet with the operation team and make requests for server infrastructure or infrastructure for them to host their application that they have just developed and tested. Then they might request for different environment. They might tell the development, the operation team, okay, they need an environment for them to even continue their coding, or an environment for them to test it, to push it and test, or a sandbox environment where people can test, and then another environment for production, right? Where after the testing, they deploy it to that production environment and people start using it. Now, the development team, the cycle, or yes, the cycle they go through to build the product from start to finish is usually a very long cycle, in the fact that once there's an idea that is born, they start with the user story, information gathering, and then they start writing their code. And when they write their code finish, they test it, and from the test they try to fix bugs, right? They fix bugs, and then so if you look at this diagram, right? Let's say an idea is born. From the idea that is born, they need to do what we call information gathering. From information gathering, they move to user story. User story have to do with what the users or what the product owners, what they want to see, right? What they want to see. And based on what they want to see, they have to develop task to say, oh, if it is a web application or an e-commerce application, for instance, we want to have a landing page. And on the landing page, we want to have a cart. We want to have users to be able to create their profile. We want to have a list of products like catalog. So all of those things can become features or function that that application is going to have. Now, each of those features or function need to be now further broken down into smaller pieces. That is now called the user story. If somebody click on a product and drag it and drop into the cart, what will happen after dropping it into the cart? Mean the number of products in the catalogs will reduce from maybe 10 to 9 because one of that product has been taken and dropped in the cart. Or it will not reduce until the person is able to pay. Once the person clicks the pay, give him the interface to put his card, and then once he put his card, deduct the money from the person's bank and display a message. The users will be able to get a message that the product is successful or he has successfully purchased that particular product. So these are what they call user story. Those user story are mini tasks or mini features that people want to see that now become a bigger function later. Now, once development team or developers, once they have this information, the user story, then they now have to create specs. So from user story, they are able to get their functions, the different functions the application will have. From there, they need to come up with specifications, right? Specifications can come in form of the code, the language they will use, the framework, where they are going to, how they will manage the code, the source code, where they will deploy it to, and all of that. So all of those make up the specification. Now, once they finish all of that, they need to start development. They need to iterate. That's in this case now, they have to create tasks and assign to different developers. Now, as they write, the first code they write become their very first version. It become the very first version of that particular product that they are trying to build, right? Now, as they continue to write their code, they test it. Sometimes the developer does the testing by themselves. Other times they have somebody in the team that is focused on just testing. As the person does his own testing, maybe performance testing, user access, usability testing, there are different kinds of testing they have to perform, right? Then bugs are discovered or errors or issues are discovered. Those issues that are discovered during testing are categorized or they are referred to as bug. Then the developer needs to come back again, look at those bugs that are being reported, look at their code and fix it. All of this is adding to the time. If you look at this, maybe it took them 3 days to come up with this function and spec, right? Which is not really, it's not feasible, it's not logical. 3 days is small. But let's assume that is what they use. Now, to start producing the code and all of that, they were able to achieve that within 4 days. Then they created what we call spreadsheet. Spreadsheet is now what we give you. It can give you like a full picture of all the tasks, who is responsible for the task, maybe how long they've budgeted for it to take and all of that. Then that took like 2 days to develop that spreadsheet of what they have already written in the code, what they've achieved, what they still need to meet. And after that, they move it to production. Maybe it took to test phase. Maybe it took them another 3 days to do the test phase. So all of this is adding up and is kind of increasing the development time for the final product, right? Now, after all of this, they are going around, the days and the rest. They need to deploy to where we call a pre-production environment. And that pre-production environment, that's where they will have a few pilot users or a few users to test it and ensure that those bugs that the tester have developed or discovered have really been fixed, right? If everything is fine, the user are fine, they are happy with what they see, then they deploy to production where the end customer will now start having access to it. Right. So all of this, there are processes in between, right? And within the processes, there are activities that need to be completed. All of this make up the development, right? Is majorly the development team. The operation team come into picture when you get to pre-deployment and pre-production deployment and production deployment of the particular product. Now, in order, what now happen is the fact that because everybody or every team is working in silo, there is time being wasted. That's one. Two, when the operation team, when they are now engaged to help to deploy this application into production, there might be issues that come up in terms of performance. While the people are accessing in the production environment, there are performance issues. And those performance issues or challenges need to be resolved. So they now decided, can they work together from start or from certain point in the development phase? Can they work together with the operation team, carry them along, that they have an understanding of what they are trying to do, and from start, they also can have their own contribution, work together, collaborate to determine the framework, the operating system, the technology, and the performance of the application. And that was how DevOps was born, right? DevOps was born to unite people, processes, and product together in order to enable what we call continuous delivery of value to their customer, right? So majorly, that's what DevOps is. And then what I will just do here, I didn't share audio with let me see if I can reshare and share with audio. Okay, share sound. I'm going to share sound. So I'm just going to play this very quickly so that we can just have a view of what Azure DevOps is all about. Put it to full screen. So just listen.
So what is DevOps? Well, the funny thing about when you say what is DevOps, you ask 10 people what DevOps.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear the audio? All right. Thank you.
DevOps is, you're probably going to get 20 different answers, right? But at Microsoft, DevOps means something very specific to us. DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable the continuous delivery of value to our end users. And now notice I said that really, really carefully, right? And the reason why is because, well, one of them, that definition was created by my manager, so if I get that wrong, right? The other thing is because every word of that was designed very specifically, right? The key is we want to continuously deliver value to our end users, and this is vital in today's world.
So that's just a simple definition of DevOps, right? The union of people, processes, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to end users. That's a simple definition. But now, for this continuous delivery of value to happen or take place, there are different stages or processes that take place at the background, and different tools that have to come in to ensure that this continuous delivery of value is actually maintained and managed within any development and DevOps environment, right? Now, when you start adopting DevOps, there are things that it's introduced within the team. It introduced what they call agile planning. Agile planning means you have to, once you have all of those user stories that you are collecting and everything, it can form what we call your backlog of work that everyone on the team and in management can see. Every single person, including the operation team, the management team, the development team, the testing team. So you have different different people that come together to make up the DevOps team, right? The developers, the testers, that's you have the tester, you have the quality assurance, you have the product managers, you have the product owners, you have the management, you have the operation team, you have all of these teams that come together and everybody can see the content of the backlog and they can follow through with the production or the development team to ensure that everything is in order. Now, agile also in the sense that as they develop, they continue to, they have meetings. Once they develop, because you created a backlog, right? The backlog contains different pipelines, right? It is broken further into pipelines. And then once you finish a particular task or a particular task where you have been able to achieve a minimum value of that particular product, you need to come into a meeting where you showcase that product or what has been developed so far. You showcase it to the management team and every single person, and then question is being asked. There, corrections are being made. Those corrections that are made, they are referred to as feedback. You collect this feedback, you go back into your user story, update the user stories, update the bugs table, and then implement this feedback into the software, the product that you have just, the part of the aspect of the product you have just delivered, right? Then once you do that finish, you need to have another meeting again where they will review. So that continues, it continues. And the agile also means you don't have to wait till you finish the entirety of the product before you take some action or before you make correction, right? So you develop, you correct, you develop, you correct, you develop, you correct. So, and that way you can develop you can have what we call a quick win, or what they call minimum viable product, right? That is what DevOps encourage. It introduces the team to what we call agile project methodology. Then there's what we call continuous integration, right? Continuous integration allow you to automate things like testing. When you build, you push it quickly. It's already automated. As you push, testing is being done at the background. There is the testing from the developer side, and there is the testing from the tester or QA himself, right? Before QA come in, the developer will run their own test as well, which the system can be used to run that test on the code that has been built, right? Now then, you have what we call continuous delivery as well. As you are running the test, as a particular segment or backlog is being completed, you can actually roll it out. Why you roll? So we say you have different environment, right? You have the development environment where you are writing the code and doing your own testing as a developer. Then once you are certain or you validated those codes that you have written, you can push it to the testing environment where the QAs will actually do their own testing on the product. Then once they finish, they can deploy it to UAT environment. In this UAT environment or sandbox environment is where users, a few users will come in, do the testing and confirm the features are what they wanted. Once that is being certified, then they roll it out to production. So while QA is doing its own test, developers continue the next thing on the backlog or the next thing in the pipeline. So that's the way it's being done. It helps you to continuously improve, continuously deliver on the service, and then you are able to monitor. That is what Azure DevOps allow you to do. Everyone is able to monitor, everyone is able to see where we are at what time of the development or within the development life cycle, right? So now, also, some misconception is that some people might think, oh, DevOps, is it a tool? Is it a methodology? Is it a solution to challenges that a customer and organization is having, right? There are things that DevOps are not. Like I said earlier, here, it introduced what they call agile project management methodologies. So there is also a project management methodology that is introduced here. It is not a method itself for project management. It's not a project management solution, and it is not a software. That's one thing we need to get. But it is a way, or it is a way of bringing people together to do what they need to do at the right time without wasting so much time. So I'm just going to play this again for you to understand
Why should I care about
what
DevOps?
it is not.
DevOps is ridiculously important. And remember, DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable the continuous delivery of value to our end users. Now, once again, the most important step here, or point here, is we need to be able to continuously deliver value. So why is it so important for us to continuously deliver value? Well, the speed of business today is so freaking fast that we have to be able to continuously deliver value to be able to keep up with the changes, with everything that's happening. So here's the key concept that you have to remember. If you are not implementing DevOps best practices, your competitors either have or they will.
Okay. Guess this is a function of the
Will.
internet.
And when they do, they will absolutely out-innovate you. And this isn't just DevOps theory. We've been doing DevOps long enough where we know this is fact. So why is DevOps important? Because you have to continuously deliver value. If you don't, you will be out-innovated. And if you get out-innovated, you become obsolete. And none of us wants to be obsolete.
So that's simply what DevOps is not. Now let's move into what is Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps actually now provides a tool for you to manage the people, the processes, and the products that DevOps has introduced to us, right? That's what Azure DevOps is. Is a tool, or is a platform that give you access to several tools for you to be able to better collaborate with the team, with the individual, with the development and the operation team and the management team. Now, within Azure DevOps, you have different services. You have what we call Azure Board. Now, under Azure Board is where you have things like user stories. Let me just go. I think I have my Azure DevOps organization somewhere here. Move this card. Uh, mm, okay, I get this up here. Hmm. All right. So, yeah, I'll just go quickly to my DevOps environment. So this is my DevOps organization, right? One thing you need to first to do is to create a DevOps organization, right? This is my DevOps organization. And within this organization, I have a few projects that have been created. Let it load for us. So here is my DevOps organization. If we go to the organization setting, if we go to the organization setting, you have all of these. You have users, you have the list of your projects. So users here will be a combination of developers, the QA, the people that just need to be informed, right? The different categories of user that are interested or interested parties on the particular project. That is, those are the users that are here. Then you have the list of your projects, give you access to manage all your projects and your codes, right? It's an environment where you can manage all your codes in one. That's like a code repository. It keep your code for you for whatever, for no matter how long it is, for however long you want to keep it, right? That's what DevOps does for you. And then you have here also things around security. You have the board. The board is under board. You have processes. You have your pipelines, and then you have your repository. So now going into a particular project, this is a project that we have created. When you get into the project, you have, let me expand this. You have different other things. You have the board. And from the board here, we have what we call work item. We have boards, we have backlog, we have sprint, we have query. Now the board here is just, it gives us like a diagram, like a Kanban board or a diagram that shows the different user stories, things, items that you are currently working on, items that, or all items that need to be worked on, right? Those are the to-do list. You have items that your users, your developers are currently working on, and you have items that you have completed. So you can put them in different, let's create, for instance, say, what do we call this now? Architect, just, I'm just trying to architect products, right? Say add, and you notice it has color. So that way, if I add another one, call it cat, manage, just creating something. Then we have another one, we can call it payments, and call it so in here you can assign the particular task, can assign it to somebody who is responsible to complete that task, right? And these are like buckets, right? I will now add a task, for instance. In this task, for underpayment, we will need the use UI, something like that. Then add another task. Is it because it's free? It's allowing you to add just one. Okay, so I'll just do something like I'll just kind of under cart management, um catalog. Let's see, allow me to add another one. Okay, it's not allowing me. But yeah, now add another one. No. Okay. So you can actually drag this way to say this is currently being doing, you are working on this and this is done. So it's like a board that give you an overview of all items that are yet to be attended to, items that is currently being worked on, items that are finished. That's majorly what the board is going to give the feature of the board. So I'm going to go back. So then we also have what we call pipeline. Pipeline allow you to build, test, and deploy with continuous integration and continuous development, delivery rather, that work with language, platform, and then the cloud. So you can develop, you can deploy to the cloud, you can use any platform and whatever language you speak. When we say language you speak, we are not talking about English or Yoruba or German. We are talking about programming languages, right? Then we have tests. These Azure tests allow you to be able to run tests, either automate the test or manually run tests on the code that you have just created or built. Then you have your repo. Your repo is what contain your code itself, and it can be integrated into Git or GitHub, right? You can actually pull repo from your GitHub, or you can just create it by yourself, or pull it from your local computer, right? Then you have what we call Artifact. Artifact allow you to create packages, and that's help you really to reuse code. So you can create code in form of artifact that other developers can make use of, instead of them reinventing the wheel, rewriting the code all the time. You can actually convert your codes into packages that other developers can make use of, right? So majorly, that's, let me go back to the DevOps environment. And then here's your repo. Your repo here, you can have your files, can have you can commit. That's based on the changes you made. You push. When you push, then you commit. Right? Once you commit, committing means, oh sorry, you commit, then you push. Committing means you are adding, you are merging, like more like merging the changes you just wrote on the code. Because each time you make a change on the code, it can create version. It's going to be creating version for you. So you have to merge those codes together. Or let's say you broke your product, you broke it into different backlog or into different tasks. When you finish the task of creating the payment gateway, for instance, or how your product will connect to the payment gateway, maybe the API, payment API, you have to add it to the overall code. So that is where you commit, right? Then you push, and then you can tag it. Taggings allow you to be able to set certain properties or parameter. Then you have what they call pull request. Pull is for you to pull a copy of your code, maybe down to your local computer and start building, or to your development environment and start working on it. Then under pipeline, that's where you create your pipeline. I have I have a sample pipeline that I've created earlier. Or let me go first. I'll go to the repo. So I have a repo that I've created. I created repo for this particular product. These are all the code. Mind you, I'm not a developer. So I was having some issues. So I had to just abandon it because I have some other things I was trying to. So this is a code for this particular application. An e-shop application that has been built. So I cloned it from repo. That's a GitHub repo. I'm going to share the link with us if you want to play around with it. So here is my repo. After the repo, I wanted to create a pipeline to kind of I wanted to create a pipeline and run the pipeline, but I was getting error. And the solution to the error is for me to, is complaining of some parameter missing kind of, okay. Then no hosted parallelism rather, and no hosted parallelism. And then for me to be able to resolve this issue, I will need to make a request from Microsoft to allow, this is a new organization I just created. This is something that is a challenge or a limitation for new organizations. So for you to use a free one, you will have to reach out to Microsoft to allow you to use the free one, which can take 5 days, between 4 to 5 days. I fill the form, but there is no guarantee that I will get response today. So the other way to go about resolving this issue is to set up a virtual machine and use agent pooling instead for the pipeline. But that was taking me some time also, which I just overlooked as well. Mm. Okay, so that's but simple. Once to create your repo, right? If you go to your file, you go to repo rather, and then you go to file. From file, you can create a new this I already have my repo here, right? We can just have a new project. We go back to the organization and we can say create a new project, right? And this new project can call it what name do we give to it? Okay, just a moment. Mhm. Okay, so I can call it test app, kind of, and I give it description. Can be a publicly available or private. Most of the time it's private, but you can enable this setting also in the organizational policy. Then advanced is to select which source control or version control you want to use. You have option for GitHub and work item process. You have basic, you have agile. So let's say I want to pick agile and then I click create. So once I've created the project, the next thing for us to do is to add file. That's create a repo, add a file. And here you have different options. You can clone. If you have a repo here, you can clone the repo to your own computer, right? And you can push it to an existing repository, but we do not have one. So what we want to do is to do what to import, right? So we are going to import a repo and we'll select, we are importing from Git. TFC is team foundation for team foundation, right? So, but we're not using that. Is I think yes, you work with the on-prem. If you have on-prem DevOps environment, you can use that. So now you go and go to the repo. We have a sample repo here. Let me see. These are some other ones here. Maybe let's try one. Search demo. Let's open this. Oh, healthcare. Yes, I think this. this will work. Then once you open the test app that you want to use or code, you go to code here, the code button, and you see link to clone. Copy this link and go to your Azure DevOps, add that, and click import. So it will do this, import it for you. Okay, so it has finished importing the code here. And what we can do is to try, let me try, if we can try to create a pipeline, right? That's after the repo, we'll create our pipeline. The pipeline we'll be creating, we'll pick Azure repo, because that's where our repository is. Then we'll select, can do a project if you have multiple projects, but this is the project. We'll select it, and then we are going to use startup pipeline. Select that, and this is it. Let me just try to push without adding anything. I'm supposed to have some code that I will replace here for this YAML file. So I'll just click run, save and run. Let's see if it will give us error. Then we'll click save. So it will create, and what it does is it creates a queue and it will run, right? So I'm having the same error. This is a limitation for new organization that is created, right? So that's step by which you can create a pipeline. You can also create environment, right? If we create an environment, can call an environment maybe the development environment, the testing, or the production environment, and you can use a virtual machine instead. So let's say some organization can choose to host their application in a virtual machine. So as you write your code, as you push, it is the inside the virtual machine is going to be pushing to, or you use Kubernetes. So majorly. Now, when it comes to test plan, this is the test that we saw here earlier, right? The Azure test plan. So here you will use the test plan to create tests, right? Create test cases, and tests can be, oh, you are testing the interface. When people add product to cart, is it doing what it's supposed to do? Does it add it to the cart? Does it increase the number of items in the cart? Does it give them option to say, okay, now finish buying, or that's go to payment or proceed to payment? All of those things, that's what the test case is going to help you do. If you can see, this is the board we're trying to create earlier, and you can see hello world site, you can see customer address form. You can see that they also assign individual owners, right, to each of those activities or tasks that they need to work on. This is a bigger a bigger board. This is more like the board, this monitoring the board and your test cases. So this is where you kind of create your test case or test plan, and then you view progress, and you can go to the run page to see the tests that are running currently and the ones that are not running. So that's majorly. And the artifact, like I said again, is for you to create packages, save your code in form of packages that can be reusable by the developers within your environment. Okay, so I think for now we are going to stop in that aspect for on DevOps for now. We'll move very quickly to databases. Okay, we're moving to databases very quickly. Now, for database, for those of us that are developers, you will understand what we mean by database. But whether you are a developer or not, every application that you use have a place where it stores its data, right? If you take an Excel now, you create an Excel file, and from that Excel file, you add information. The Excel have its own inbuilt database that you use in storing those information for you. If you all the chat that you're doing on Teams, there's a location that those chat data are being stored. It's called a database. So every action, every application that you are using have one storage location or the other. So database allow you to store data and have access to those data to make informed business decision in the future, right? Or for your business, right? Now, when you come to Azure, databases are categorized in two forms, right? You have the database that are designed for AI ready application, and you have those that are used for modern applications or standard applications that you create within your environment. Now, database services are compute services, and they are also PaaS services. There are PaaS services that are available for you in the cloud or even on-prem. Anyone that have played around with database like SQL database or MySQL database will really understand what we are talking about. All of these applications that we talk about, creating application or creating a product here, while you build your app, you need to, by the time you want to deploy it, it will need to connect to a database. And that is what we are talking about here. Database services in Azure. Okay. Now, the database services allow you to, they help you to simplify how you handle your data while focusing really on things that truly matter, which is what? Your application. What the database in the cloud allow you to do is to focus on writing your code against managing databases, the infrastructure, the underlying infrastructure. You are just building your code and managing your code. Now, with Azure, there are different database services that you can use. Database, again, they can be categorized into what we call relational database and no non-relational database, which are called NoSQL database or caching databases, right? When we talk about relational databases are databases that have one relationship or the other with some other components. And they can also be referred to as what we call structured databases. So relational databases are databases that are used to store structured data. And when we say structured data, we are talking about data that come in form of tables, data that come in form of rows. Take an Excel, for instance. I open an Excel file. Maybe I want to collect information about within a particular demography, right? And the information I want to collect, it has to do with people's age. Let's say we have their names. Names can be first name, right? It has last name. It has age. It has gender, male or female, right? It has gender. It has hair color, hair color. It has eye color, maybe eye color. It has let's see, shoe size. Shoe size. It has place of birth, right? Place of birth. Place of birth. It has, let's say again, date of birth. That's DOB. DOB. So we continue like that. Now, if I come here and pick Titi Lokwe, and I go to last name, Bello, or Titi Lokwe Joseph, right? Joe Jackson. Then age is 20 years, gender female, hair color brown or blonde. We have eye color is blue eye. It has shoe size, that's, let's say, size 40. Place of birth, Lagos. Date of birth, let's say May 2000, kind of, right? You go to the next table, you put James Peter. James Peter is 18 years old. He's a male. He has a black hair color, and he has a black Irish, and he has his shoe size. He's a guy. He's wearing 45. His place of birth is let's say US, kind of, and then DOB, January to January, let's say 1980. Okay, 1980. So I'm just assuming, right? 1980. So you have the tables like that. They continue, on this particular row, everything you have here have to do with first name of everybody you are talking about, last name, age. You continue. So you will not carry somebody's age and come and put it under his first name or last name. This is what they call structured data. So SQL or relational database is used in storing this form of data, right? Structured data. Now, you also have what we call unstructured, semi-structured or unstructured data, or NoSQL data. NoSQL data are non-relational database type. And when we now talk of unstructured data that they are saving, things like picture, things like images. Let's say you have, for instance, you want to collect animals. That's animals, yes, all kinds of animals. The animals have names, but the picture will never be something common. they might be in different, animals are of different shape, right? And of different type. So those are unstructured or semi-structured data, unstructured data. Semi-structured data are, there will be a bit of similarity and in the way the data are structured. Some things will be common, while some are not common. So when it comes to no SQL databases, they are used to store um, data of very structure, right? That is what they are used for. Now, the caching data type or database type are databases that is used to cache information or cache data for quick access. So instead of when a user make request or an application is making request to a database, instead of the application going to fetch the data all the time, that data, when you fetch it the first time, you can cache the data for a reuse by another requester, right? That is what you call caching database type. So now in Azure, you have various type of relational and non-relational databases. You have Azure SQL database. If, like I said, if you have used Azure data SQL, Microsoft SQL Server in the past, you will appreciate Azure database. You know, Azure SQL database. So you have Azure SQL database, and this is for hyperscaling for large application or large scalable application, majorly for commercial use purposes, right? And you have the standard SQL database that help you to you can integrate it or use it to develop your applications. That's yes, your application, and you can also use it for what we call business intelligence, right? Business intelligence in the sense that the data that you have in the SQL, you can analyze it using tools like Power BI to make decisions around those data. You have also what we call Azure SQL managed instances. Right. The Azure SQL managed instances allow you also, just like the SQL data, is help to is a server kind of serverless database that allow you to also build large scale instant, almost up to date or always up to date database in the cloud. Right. You have other databases. SQL database is all the time have to run on a virtual machine. You have to install it on a virtual machine in Azure. Then you have Postgres database, you have MySQL database, you have Cosmos database. Cosmos DB are databases that are built for globally distributed NoSQL database service. So when we mean globally distributed, Cosmos DB can be hosted in multiple regions that is associated with your account. So you can create a Cosmos DB account, and under this account, you add a lot of region or multiple regions. Now, the best practice when it comes to cloud services is that you host your data closer or your application closer to your user. So Cosmos DB allow you to host applications closer to your users. If you have a global organization, global company that have users of their application in different parts of the world, you can actually set up your Cosmos DB in such a way that it's spread across different regions. And the beauty with it is the fact that when you add, whether you want to add more region or you want to reduce the number of regions you have, it does not have any effect or does not bring down your service or your application. Application continue to function while you are adding and removing regions from your databases. Then you also have MongoDB, you have Redis. Redis is for caching, is for large database that require caching, you know, for faster response time, right? It's also called in-memory solution or in-memory database, meaning you have all the things you want to collect, you have it have it at its fingertip. I can quickly deliver it to you without wasting time, right? Then there's also another database that is not listed here, which is called, it used to be called, it's now called Azure Synapse. So that is used for big data and data warehouse. Before it's called data warehouse, but now it's called Synapse, Azure Synapse for analytics, for analyzing big data, right? Yes, for analyzing big data and data warehouse. Right, that's everything majorly. So now when you create your application, let's say I go here now, I create an app service, right? This yes, I want to create an app service. We treated app service last week, right? Maybe on Saturday. So I want to create an app service, and I'll pick maybe a .NET, pick a .NET, this version of .NET is what we want to pick, or it can be a container application, but we'll leave it as code, and then we want to make it a Windows-based or Linux-based application. So here is going to allow us to select our region, and that's pick this region. I'll just leave it, right? Then I pick my pricing plan and then all of that, we leave them as default, and we'll click next. We'll go to database. So you can either connect your database now, create a database and connect to this application now, or create it later and connect it to the application. So what we just do is go ahead and create, if we want to create a database, we'll create a database. What type of database do we want to create? We can select either SQL or Postgres, depending on what we want to do with the application. The application will also have your choice. The application you are building and the complexity of the application will also have an impact right, on the database that you're selecting. So we'll select, let's go with the standard, the SQL database, and it will create a database server for us. This name is already picking, you can give it a new name, and then it will create a database name, right? So what we want to do next is to go to deployment. Under the deployment, really, we can link our deployment to, if you have a GitHub account, right? You can link it here. We have a GitHub account. See now, for continuous deployment. That means as you push from your GitHub or from your Azure DevOps, it will automatically push here and deploy to this environment. So if you have, you will click here, but we don't have GitHub action, right? Then we move next. What type of authentication do we want on the application? You can pick, you can enable basic authentication or leave it as it is. We will be the one to create our account. Then networking, we won't do anything here. Now, monitoring. Monitoring is something that we are going to talk about in a bit later also. This is where you can enable what they call application insight, right? App insight. We'll talk about it if we have more time today. If not, that will be in our next class. So we want to enable application insight. Application insight is part of Azure Monitor that help you monitor the performance of an application, right, for developers and then the DevOps team, right? So we can enable it, enable application insight. We say yes. Application insight name is then the region is picking Canada Central already, and we click. To better get more information, you can enable Defender for App Service. That's at a cost also to get more information with your app inside. and then we click tagging. For the tagging, can give it what resource is what? Resource is an app service. App service, that's tag, then usage. Usage is test or demo. Demo. You can add multiple tags, right? And from here, it's going to apply to everything that is associated with this particular application, the app service, the app inside the database, resource group, and the rest. And then we click create, right? So this is just, the skill that is speaking. Hopefully you will not complain about not having money. So just give it some time. So this is simply, we are trying to create application, and then we've created database alongside the application. That's simply how to create. We can also, okay. So now it's a username and password of the new database are generated automatically. So we have to retrieve it. To retrieve this value after the deployment, go to the app setting of your app and you'll be able to see it. But we have it here. We can actually copy it. And the name of the username that is giving us is this. We just leave it as that and we click create. So it's currently creating, right? While that is, while the creation is happening, let's see, that's majorly that, just for you to know that your database, you can actually, when you create your app, you can connect it to your database. Yes. While we are trying to go through this. Okay. And monitor the operation, created a VNet, created a private link for DNS zone, and it will continue like that. We'll come back here later. Now, let's quickly look at Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor enable end-to-end monitoring of all your Azure and hybrid services. So meaning you can monitor resources that are not hosted in Azure, like your on-prem resource or in another location. To do that, you just need to install agents. Once you install agents, you will be able to monitor those. You'll be able to bring logs and events into Azure Monitor for action to now be taken, right? So one reason for you to host, for hosting website, right? I'm sorry, for hosting your workload in Azure is the ability to scale up and scale down. In the past, when you have to do that scaling, scale, you can scale automatically. When there's need for more resources on the server, you can configure it that the server either increase in number or it increases in size in terms of memory, CPU, and the rest. So vertical scaling or horizontal scaling. But you needed something to give you an insight into what the capacity issues are really all about, the capacity issues that you are having. So Azure Monitor help you to collect those metrics and log, and then you can review them and make meaningful decisions with those information that are collected within the Azure Monitor, right? So for you to understand this, at least by now, we should have already know how to navigate around Microsoft Azure portal to be able to create resources, right? Um, Azure Monitor have a few components that make it work and function effectively, right? One of the components that you have is what they call data collection. The data collection is what is responsible for collecting data like metric data, log data, or log traces to provide insight to functioning and performance of your monitor components. Components can include app service, component can include databases, component can include virtual machines, right? Now, when it collects the data finish, the next thing it wants to do is to analyze the data. So it does data analysis, right? Understanding the current states of the different applications or resources that you are monitoring, and then it predicts potential issues, right? For those applications, virtual machines, databases, or whatever services they are monitoring rather. Then it identifies patterns and trends. Like if things happen maybe at a particular time every afternoon, that's a pattern or that's a trend, right? It detects those patterns and give you recommendation based on those patterns. So if something also, it can detect anomalies. For instance, an application your application behave very well at a particular time of the day, but suddenly on a particular day, something happened, it didn't behave the way it's supposed to behave. That's an anomaly. So it's going to detect that for you. That's the analysis part of Azure Monitor. The other thing you can now do is to configure alerts. So based on data collected on the metric log, these are data metric and now metric data are CPU data, memory data, storage usage data. Those are metric data. So now you can then configure alerts to say if the CPU of a particular application server is high to a particular percentage, it will give you an alert, right? So that you want to check it. Or if the disk is getting low, it will give you an alert. You want to check it and increase the disk or free up space on that particular resource that you are monitoring, right? Now, based on the data that is collected and the analysis, it give you it help you visualize, right? It help you visualize the data. Visualization in the form of, oh, this is what is connecting to this is what is connecting to this, like a diagram kind of visualization to see how to help you quickly access the system and know where that particular issue is happening, right? And it help you to diagnose and troubleshoot root cause of a problem within the Azure Monitor, right? So now this other thing that you can other benefits that you can derive from using Azure Monitor have to do with performance and cost optimization. If you have noticed, maybe if you have your own Azure environment, you might notice if you go to advisory, sometimes you might notice things telling you that you've been using a virtual machine of a particular size. It is recommended that you reduce the size of that VM. Maybe you gave it more resources than is necessary, or you gave it less resources than it needed, right? It will give you those recommendations. It helps you to be more proactive. So you get to see issues and take action before it causes a disruption to your users, right? So you are proactive. Then provide reliability, right? You provide reliability in the sense that once you see an anomaly, you can quickly address it. You can identify those issues and quickly troubleshoot them. And then it helps you to do what we call capacity planning. Capacity planning in the term in form of giving you forecast of the usage of the resources like CPU, storage, the bandwidth, interface bandwidth, disk utilization, and the rest. Now, this is just giving you like a diagram of um, the diagram of Azure Monitor, right? You have your Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor collects data from using metrics, it uses from log, from traces, and from changes that happen within an environment. Now, each of these metrics, log, traces, changes, they are coming from a particular location. And that location are your workloads, right? It could be from your workload, it could be from your app services, it could be from your infrastructure, it could be from your Azure platform or custom location, like maybe your network devices. You can actually send your log to Azure Monitor to analyze it for you, right? This workload or location where those metrics are being generated from is called data source. Now, this data source sends notification or information or alert. They send it to the Azure Monitor, right? Azure Monitor then help you to analyze it, and after analyzing it, it visualize it for you, and you can configure alert and create automation or runbook to take certain action if a particular thing happen within to a resource that is being monitored by Azure Monitor, right? So you will see from this diagram, under the consumption, you have insight. Insight, we have application insight. You can configure insight for containers. You can configure insight for network and virtual machine and more. Then you visualize them. To visualize, you have different tools that you can use. You have what we call runbook. You have dashboard. You have Power BI. And for those of us that are familiar with Grafana, right? These are tools that help you to visualize your data within the Azure Monitor. Then analyze. You have what we call metric explorer that give you like a graphical interface, the graphical view of the data that has been collected, and you can then configure automation, like right, configure automation, configure alert, and all of that to be able to take certain action or respond to things that are being detected within the data that is collected, right? That's majorly what's the visualizing Azure Monitor. Okay. Now, there are processes by which those data are being collected. We talked about earlier, we talked about data collection and storage. When the data are collected from each of these applications or workload, it stores it somewhere where Azure Monitor then goes to collect those metrics and provide to these other applications or components to do their work, right? So you have when it comes to data collection and storage, you have native monitoring of your application environment, and then and as soon as you have your resources created, just like you can automatically include monitor. You notice we added that while we were creating the Spring creation. We added the ability for application insight. So you can enable it at the point of creation, and you can enable it after creation. Okay. So go back to the Azure Monitor. Um, Now, alert workbooks and visualization is how you are able from this dashboard. You can see that we are able to visualize what's going on here. This around virtual machine, this virtual machine, there's CPU usage, there's network usage, and you can see here, so it's not so clear. If we are able to, we'll see some of those things. Hopefully, I've been able to collect some data around my some of the workload that I have in here. So this is the kind of dashboard that you have to be able to see what is going on within your Azure monitor. This is more, this have to do with application, this application insight, and this is for security. Okay, this is looking at infrastructure and network, while this is looking at applications, right? And now, talking about metric, I said earlier, I said metrics have to do with CPU usage, memory usage, network latency, transaction rates. Those are examples of metric that are being collected by the Azure Monitor from the various workloads, right? That is being monitored, right? Then you have the logs, right? Every Windows, every computer have their own log, or every application have a way they log information. So if we go, for instance, to this Windows machine, I can go to what we call event viewer. If you open event viewer, every computer have it. It logs information in the event viewer. And if you go there, you see what they call Windows log. Under Windows log, you see application log. All the applications that are installed on this particular computer, they generate log as they are being used. In this log, in this particular location is where you will see there's issue with any of your application that you are using, right? It's taking some time to load. You will see if there's issue. It's log information about security. Security have to do with you logging into an environment, logging into the system, logging in, trying to access application on the network, right? These are all application log that are being generated on this computer. We pick this, for instance, and this is saying Windows cannot load the extensible counter DLL for what? For VMware, right? For VMware, and it is VMware performance. It's a performance counter. So this a VMware application. This is an application that I have running on my computer. This app to simulate or run virtual machine on your computer, right? And it's giving this error. Here you can see other errors, and you can actually try to troubleshoot them. So this error or this log, you can actually collect them and send them to Azure Monitor, and it's going to look at it and analyze them for you and provide insight to those logs for you. So if you look at this now, this is a web application, right? And the metric that they are collecting, if you go to the metric tab, you have this metric is some requests. These have to do with requests, right? That's a request coming from user, how user are trying to access it. It's a graph that is showing that. So that's majorly what it is around Azure Monitor. You can use it to monitor your resources in Azure. So here, let's go now quickly to the resources that we have just created. Okay, let me see my other environment. Some data. Okay, so here is our web application that we have created. And then this application have a database that it's connecting to. Let me go back to subscription, right? And then we'll go to the resource group, or go to resources. In the resources, you see we have application insights. that we created the other time during the creation of the application. Then we have our database. This is database server, and this is the database itself, right, that we have created and connected. And then we have our app service that is here. So if we go to application insight, let's see if it has collected any data yet. Then we view log. I'm not sure we have any data yet because we've just created the app. We've not done anything. Okay. So we can see creation, but uh, from app insight, that's application insight. Application insight is part of the Azure Monitor. So just remember that it's part of the Azure Monitor. So resource visualization allow you to see all the resources, how they are connecting or interconnected together, right? Like a diagram. Okay. Then let's go to settings. For this application, we have log, we have automation, we have task. So we have not been able to generate any data here yet, but once we generate, it will look similar like all this. You'll be able to see all this metric. So, but let me go to the app service. Okay. So this is the app service. If we go to the monitor part, of the app service, we have here, we have all of those. We have alert, metric, we have logs, then you have advisor, right? Advisor, then you have your application insight. So if we click metric, for instance, let's see if we have anything there. Okay, so here we have to add metric. Let's see. Let's see, CPU, average memory work. Um, you can do response time, for instance. Okay, so we have a little data already, right? But the response time currently is constant because we have not started doing anything. Let's do something. This is go back to the application overview, and we try to access this application. Open it in a new tab. So these are our application that we just deployed, right? And it's running. Going back to metric. Let's see response time. There. Can we see something as occur? Something just occurred, right? So that's it. It went down. This will be at the point of creation. Things are high. Now that everything is down, no activity is going on, it's kind of down. Today is what? Today is Monday. Okay. You have to build your own query, add filter. And another metric, the app service, CPU. Let's see, memory. Okay, average. So we have memory at this time. So this is where you will see what's going on. At this time, there was a spike, then it came down, right? So if we refresh again, let's see if anything change. So nothing. So you have the blue line representing the response time, and you have the pink representing the memory usage over time, right? So this is majorly how to uh, view the metrics that are being collected, apply app service, sorry, apply a monitor, and then uh, um, view the monitoring. So if you go to log, for instance, you'll be able to see the log as well, but we are not collecting log right now, so you won't see anything. If we go to App Insight again, let's see if it has been able to generate some data yet. Okay, it's currently enabled and linked to our application. Nothing yet. Our app is a .NET application. So we don't have anything yet because we haven't been doing. And you can see the diagnostic, right? Settings. You can see the diagnostic setting and configure the uh uh um yeah, you can see the diagnosis setting for the particular application. And you are able to diagnose and resolve problem that is happening around this application. So now let's go to said the other time, look at the database, right? The database, we are going to check. I'm looking for the application setting. That's under properties. Mm, mm, Looking for the user certificate. Business setting. Uh, Minutes. Okay, see on that configuration environment. I want to pick the username and password, for instance, for the Azure, for the database. Yes, it's under environment, app setting. So let's say you have configured your application and then you want to be able to connect, right, to the uh you want to be able to connect to your database, but you don't know where the credential is to connect to that database, right? This here is what they call connection string, right? Connection string is a IP or server address and password information kind of. So if we click this, we will see this long string. And when you scroll, right, should, though it's supposed to be encrypted. Okay, so it's encrypted. It's encrypted. Mm, oh, mm, yes, this is it. So show value, and we can see the server address, the server name, and the password. So we just click it to open, and we can see it here. So let's say we want to connect to the database from management studios, for instance, to manage the database. Let me see if I have management studio here. Okay, I have management studio. I launch this. I can actually connect to this database from outside Azure, or I can also use this credential to connect other application to the database. Okay. Where's the management studio? It's not loading. Okay. Okay. So I have my management studio here. You see, I want to connect to the SQL. I want to connect to uh, database. So connecting to a database, right? So here to connect, it's going to ask me for the server that I want to connect to. I'll just come to the detail here. Have it here, and I'll collect the server name, the server address. Uh, the server address, right? Is SQL. Then username is this. And then we have the password. and then I'll try to connect. Then so this is normal, right? When you want to connect to database from outside Azure, you get this. And if you notice, it's asking, it said my IP address does not have access to the server. Sign in to Azure and create a new firewall rule to check that. So if we go to the database, going to the database now, here is the database server. Go into the database server. Okay. Okay. So this is the database server, and here I will go to data management. Not data management. We have database server. There's supposed to be one database currently on this guy. Settings, sorry. So we'll go to settings and we'll go to database. And we can see the database that we created earlier, right? This is one thing that you need to pay attention to when it comes to cost. Databases are expensive, and if you don't pay attention to the cost that you are selecting, you might be overspending, right? Though if you enable monitor and Azure advisor, it will help you to tell you that maybe you are overspending in a particular location. So this is database, the database that is hosted on that particular server. This is the database that is created on that particular database server. If you notice, you see this is the server name, and this is the database that is hosted on this particular server. Now, if we go to firewall, say set server firewall, we go to firewall security. Let's see. I think that should be under the server itself. To go back to the server itself, the SQL server, then we go to the okay. Yes, we go to the firewall. Where is the firewall now for the database? Okay, we go to networking. We go to networking. Done. Yeah. Now, under networking, that's under security for the database server. Under security, you have networking. Under the networking, when you click it, you have this public access, private access, and connectivity. If we go to public access, it's more like you want to create public endpoints. When we're creating, it will allow us to connect, to the database to manage it if we want to, if there's need to do that. Then private endpoint is for you to create an endpoint that is privately allowed by maybe an application, for instance, is allowed to connect to this particular database. And you have connectivity in terms of security, the policy that you want to use. We are using TLS now to encrypt data in transit. So if you go back to this public access, you see say public access, uh, uh, public network access. It's currently selected. That's select network. That we're asking that we select network. Now we have virtual network. We can have virtual network and we will add the virtual network in this list. But currently it's only allowing the virtual network that is created for the database itself, the server itself to connect, right? Now you see rule here. This is to allow people from outside this environment, outside the Azure environment, to connect to it. And if you notice this IP here, this is my IP. It's already is noting the IP that I'm using to connect, and it's asking if I want to add this particular IP. If I add this IP now, I'll be able to connect from Visual Studio, right, to the to the database. So I'll just say add my client IP, then I'll save it. Once I save it, it has created a firewall rule already for this my IP. Then I can go back here, cancel this, and say try again. So now we have been able to connect to that database, to the database server, and I can view all the databases that we have. Remember, this is the database we have that is created on this server. This is the server, right? You notice also in the SQL, this is the server name. It is here. Then the database, you go to the database section under setting, SQL databases, you see the single database we created. This cohort 6 app database. If you come to Visual Studio, you see the database here as well, right? And you can create new databases, and then you can create new database. Once you create it here, it will also show up here as another database that you have created, and you can run query on that database, right? So this is simply how to connect to your database. But yes, this is simply how to connect to your database. So let's stop here for today. And then, do we have any questions so far? Trying to locate my Teams UI. Okay. So I guess there are no questions. I can just stop recording for now.